Get ready for a wild ride as we dive into the dark, twisted world of international crime. Today we're talking about the cold-blooded killers, international terrorists, and the most elusive fugitives who currently have a red notice from Interpol. We're about to explore the criminal underworld, where the stakes are high, the plots are thick, and the criminals are anything but ordinary. Let's see who's on the run and what they've done to earn a spot on Interpol's most wanted list. We start our world tour of crime in the good old US of A. First on our list is Jason Derek Brown. Brown grew up in Los Angeles and even served as a missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which are like normal saints but newer. Despite his pious upbringing, Brown had a taste for the high life, and he liked to pretend that he was a successful businessman when he was anything but. Working as both a toy salesman and a golf equipment importer, Brown was soon running into serious debt trying to fund his playboy lifestyle. By 2004, Brown had already defaulted on a major loan and was tens of thousands of dollars in debt. And that left him with only one option. Brown turned to running check and bank fraud scams to keep up appearances. The police even believed he resorted to home invasion and good old-fashioned stick-em-ups in the street. On more than one occasion, he would put on fancy clothes with a fresh haircut and go to a dealership where he'd buy a luxury vehicle using a false social security number and address. Who knew scamming a brand new car was that easy? Brown's lifestyle was racking up serious bills and he was becoming increasingly desperate. And that's why he soon settled on the ultimate plan, robbing an armored car full of cash deposits from local businesses. In November 2004, Brown purchased a .45 Glock and registered for a firearms instruction course. Despite his numerous scams, Brown had avoided falling under police notice so far, so his background check came back clean. What can we say? The system just works. Brown's personality was apparently not lost on his instructor, Clark Aposian, who described him as a, quote, obnoxious student. During his firearms training, Brown also managed to accidentally discharge his pistol into a truck belonging to another student. A few weeks later, Brown, now a responsible gun owner, would approach Robert Keith Palomares, a 24-year-old armored car guard who was carrying the weekend deposits from a local AMC movie theater to the vehicle. Brown ambushed him and fired 6 rounds at Palomares, hitting him 5 times in the head and missing once. So he might have been an obnoxious student who couldn't handle a firearm without shooting someone's truck, but kudos on paying attention to the marksmanship portion of the training. Palomares was killed instantly, leaving Brown free to steal $56,000 in cash. Incredibly, Brown's getaway vehicle was a bicycle, because no one ever suspects a cyclist. Even more incredibly, he got away despite multiple witnesses in the parking lot who could have easily flattened Brown into a pancake with their automobile. Those same witnesses would describe the shooter as between 25 and 30 years old and Hispanic, but after recovering the bicycle, police were able to check the fingerprints versus the federal database, making Brown the prime suspect. So the system kinda works, I guess. Brown would be charged with first-degree murder and armed robbery. When Brown rudely refused to turn himself in, he was also charged with unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. Brown fled to Henderson, Nevada, and then on to Las Vegas, where he swapped his BMW M3 for a black Cadillac Escalade that he stored there earlier. He then drove to Orange County, where he stayed with relatives who had no idea they were harboring a cold-blooded, cowardly ambush killer. The FBI tracked him to Orange County by December, and they were closing the noose until Phoenix Police Department decided to make the biggest brain move of all time. Under pressure to show that they were making progress on the murder, the Phoenix PD's senior staff decided to hold a press conference announcing Brown as the chief suspect. The FBI and even their own detectives both vehemently opposed this move, fearing that it would, tip Brown off. Phoenix PD went ahead anyways, and when news began to run nationwide, naming Brown as the suspect, Brown then realized he'd been made. Even more frustratingly, the FBI had tracked him down to his relative's home and launched a raid less than an hour after Brown had left. Brown went south to the US-Mexico border, tracked by the feds through his use of a credit card. This could have been an elaborate ruse to throw the FBI off his scent, as Brown then turned north and drove all the way to Portland, still using his credit card. Scratch the elaborate ploy part. By January, Brown must have wisened up, and police would discover his abandoned Cadillac in the long-term parking lot of the Portland International Airport. Meanwhile, Brown's older brother, who was just as big a scumbag as him, would wind up charged with obstruction of justice. Crime must run in the family. David John Brown II, living in San Diego, had deep cleaned his brother's getaway BMW in December after picking it up from the Las Vegas storage site. The FBI also asked him if he knew of any storage lockers that his brother might be using in Vegas, to which David said he didn't. Later, the FBI would prove that this was a lie. David John Brown II would get 3 years of probation for trying to cover up his brother's tracks. By 2005, Brown had disappeared, despite the FBI receiving over 200 leads. Brown's aggressively generic appearance made it difficult to pin him down, though he did bear a slight resemblance to Sean Penn. This actually led to somebody tipping off the police to Brown's location, but when the FBI made their arrest, they realized they'd actually captured a body double for Sean Penn. Brown would be spotted in August 2008 when a fellow missionary recognized him at a traffic light near the Hogle Zoo in Salt Lake City. When he realized he'd been recognized, Brown slammed on the accelerator and sped away, with the witness stating that he'd grown his hair out long and had a deeper tan. Given his missionary background, the police believe Brown may be living in plain sight amongst the Mormon community in Utah under an assumed name. However, he's also proficient in French, and authorities believe he may have fled to either France or Quebec. Some leads also place him in Thailand. Brown is now one of both the FBI's and Interpol's most wanted. And with a hefty $200,000 bounty to his name, if you happen to spot him, you could pick up a nice chunk of change. Brown had a close call with the law, but just wait, since our next fugitive's escape from the law makes Brown look like a total amateur, with an insane prison break straight out of an action movie that left an entire country on high alert. So let's hop across the pond to France and say bonjour to Mohamed Amra, who recently got the dubious distinction of becoming France's most wanted man. Known as the Fly, or should that be Le Fly? Amra got his criminal start early in life, committing his first crime at the tender age of 11. Working alongside a street gang, Amra engaged in extortion and theft, with the random assault thrown in for variety. By age 15, he was charged with his first official crime. Amra is believed to have links to organized crime, specifically in the drug trade. He's believed to either be a head of a narcotics network or a mid-level player in his hometown of Marseille. Despite this, when he was finally jailed in January of 2022, none of the convictions were for drug-related crimes as the police lacked any evidence. Instead, among numerous convictions, the police also charged Amra with attempted murder stemming from a gang-related kidnapping that would result in a death. In 2022, Amra would be sentenced to 3 years in prison for various crimes. In 2024, while already in prison, Amra was re-arrested for burglary charges stemming from 2019. Amra had broken into various supermarkets and restaurants, stealing petty cash and an estimated 200 bottles of alcohol. Police also suspect that he used encrypted messaging apps to continue playing his part as middle management in the drug trade while in prison. Police would find him attempting to saw through the bars of his cell a few days later, because France apparently sends their prisoners to Looney Tunes jail. Amra would be transferred to a higher security prison, an event that would end in the tragic loss of life of numerous prison officials. A stolen car rammed the white prison van he was being transported in head-on while it was passing a toll booth on the A154 freeway. The second prison vehicle behind the prison van then became stuck, and 2 gunmen in balaclavas and carrying automatic rifles exited the stolen vehicle, while 2 other men exited from a white Audi A5 which had been shadowing the convoy. The men then opened fire on the trapped guards, firing between 30 and 40 rounds, killing 2 and seriously injuring 3. Amra was rescued from the prison van and disappeared, with the vehicles used in the breakout discovered later having been burned. Over 450 police officers and gendarmes took part in the manhunt, with roadblocks set up all over northwestern France. A force of over 350 police investigators were put on the case, working against the clock as police feared that Amra would cross the border into Spain. So far, the hunt for Amra and his criminal gang has been fruitless. But in addition to the Interpol Red Notice, the French President Emmanuel Macron has also mobilized resources dedicated to their capture and has vowed to bring them to justice. Thefts, organized crime, prison breaks – these are nothing compared to our next criminal, a former cop turned war criminal whose reign of terror has left him wanted for crimes against humanity. Noureddin Adam is the leader of the African rebel group, the Popular Front for the Rebirth of the Central African Republic. Pretty catchy name, huh? Surprisingly, Adam was once a police officer in Egypt where he attended the police academy in Cairo. He was recruited as an agent by Israeli special forces and underwent 6 months of training with them. Whatever work Adam did for Israel, it was kept extremely classified, as there is no record of it. However, it is likely that he served as an intelligence asset for Israel's ongoing regional counterterrorism efforts. In the early 2000s, Adam freelanced as a contractor for hire across the Persian Gulf, even becoming a bodyguard to President Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan of the United Arab Emirates. In 2009, though, he made his way to the Central African Republic and joined up with the Convention of Patriots for Justice and Peace. Who thinks of these names? The CPJP had its origin in the expulsion of the Runga people from their diamond fields by the UFDR, or Union of Democratic Forces for Unity, a rebel group believed to be used by Sudan to destabilize the Central African Republic. When Charles Massey, a former politician turned rebel leader of the CPJP, was allegedly killed by the CAR government, Adam took over leadership of the group. Adam was decisive in seizing the capital of Bangui, which overthrew President Francois Bozize. Michel Djotoria, commander of the Seleka coalition of rebel factions, took the presidency for himself, installing Adam as Minister of Public Security. Djotoria dismissed Adam several months later before making him National Security Advisor instead. In 2014, Adam was sanctioned by the UN Security Council for trafficking diamonds out of the CAR and into Chad, as well as, quote, engaging in or providing support for acts that undermine the peace, stability, or security of the CAR. In 2015, Adam declared the creation of the Autonomous Republic of Legon, earning the denunciation of both the UN and the CAR's transitional government. The UN's peacekeeping mission to the country threatened the use of force to end any separatist attempt. Adam's plan was to create a Muslim stronghold in the northern CAR and embarked on a campaign of terror against Christians in the country. Under his command, Christians in the CAR have been beaten, abducted, tortured, and killed. Adam is also wanted for war crimes committed in August 2013 when forces under his command stormed into a CAR neighborhood under the pretense of looking for a weapons cache. The neighborhood strongly supported President Francois Bozize at the time, as well as Bozize's ethnic group, and Adam's troops went on a bloody rampage. The violence caused thousands of civilians to flee to the international airport that was at the time being secured by French peacekeeping troops. Adam is still believed to be in the Central African Republic, but with the regional instability, bringing him to justice is extremely unlikely. If you thought Adam was bad, though, just wait until you hear about a cold-blooded killer on the run whose crimes are so brutal they'll make you question humanity. Alexis Flores, seen here, is wanted for heinous acts he committed in the U.S. The Honduran fugitive was injured in Hurricane Mitch in 1998, leaving behind a big surgical scar on his neck that makes it easy to identify exactly where to slit his throat should you find him. Shortly after this, Flores made his way to the U.S. In the summer of 2000, Flores was homeless in Hunting Park, Philadelphia, where he encountered local Jorge Contreras. Contreras decided to do him a good turn and offered him shelter, new clothes, and food in exchange for working as a handyman. Flores agreed and worked throughout the summer for Contreras. On August 3rd, 5 days after being reported missing, the body of 5-year-old Iriana de Jesus was discovered trapped in a plastic bag in the basement of an empty apartment building that Flores was believed to be staying at. A t-shirt with a political logo was discovered near the body with de Jesus' blood on it, and after questioning, Contreras confirmed that it was a shirt he given to Flores. Flores, meanwhile, had already fled the area, though he quickly became a wanted fugitive featured on America's Most Wanted. In 2002, Flores was arrested for shoplifting in Arizona, though thanks to fake documents, he avoided the detection of the FBI. 2 years later, police responded to a noise complaint from Flores' home, and he once more gave fake ID documents to the police. However, along with pornography strewn all across the home, police discovered a device used for making fake IDs, which was a felony in the state of Arizona. Unfortunately, without any real documentation, police were unable to trace Flores to the APB issued for his arrest, prompting them to detain him for 60 days before he was deported to Honduras. While arrested in Arizona, Flores' DNA was sampled and added to the combined DNA index system. A year later, his DNA came up as a positive match for the DNA discovered at the scene of de Jesus' murder. Pennsylvania issued an arrest warrant and charged him with murder, unlawful flight to avoid prosecution, and other felonies. Flores is believed to either be in Honduras or to have returned to the U.S., and an Interpol Red Notice lists a $250,000 reward for any information leading to his arrest. So be on the lookout, since he definitely doesn't deserve to be on the streets any longer. Next, we head to Spain, where a scam led to a triple homicide, but it didn't go down the way you think. Vasil Nikolov Baklarov, seen here, is wanted by the Spanish government. Originally from Bulgaria, Baklarov is a prime suspect in the murder of 2 Spanish businessmen and a Cameroonian national. Along with an accomplice, Baklorov is believed to have murdered the three after realizing they were scamming him. That's right, Baklorov and his accomplice were actually the victims in this case, with the dead men attempting to dupe them with a complicated scheme to double or triple an investment. Upon realizing that it was a scam, Baklorov and his accomplice shot the three men 16 times. Then they strapped them in the backseat of a car and burned the car near the city of Alcalá de Henares. You can't be too careful, huh? Baklorov is believed to either still be in Spain or to have fled back to his home country of Bulgaria, and is considered armed and dangerous. For our next criminal, we're staying in Spain for a wild story of a huge crime ring hidden in plain sight. Spanish authorities are currently on the lookout for Nikolai Shatarev Kurkachev, another Bulgarian man who is wanted under the suspicion of being the leader of an international crime ring. Kurkachev's operation imported cocaine from Colombia, with the drugs hidden inside of regular legal merchandise in an effort to fool inspectors. When we say that the cocaine was inside of legal merchandise, we mean it literally. The drug would have to be removed from the products that it had been formed with by chemists working in underground laboratories. After that, the cocaine was moved all across Europe. European law enforcement tracked 3 shipments from South America to Bulgaria, where they recorded Kurkachev being present to physically receive each shipment. Kurkachev remains wanted by Interpol, but it doesn't seem like they have any idea where he might be. So maybe just be suspicious if you spot a scientist somehow converting recently imported food products into cocaine. Our next fugitive has managed to evade capture for years, and he's so good, he's even earned one of the best nicknames a criminal could hope for. Abdellah El Haj Sadek El Membri, pictured here, is a Moroccan national known as the Messi of Hashish. A 38-year-old, Membri oversees the import of marijuana from northern Morocco into Spain on high-speed boats. Once there, they're loaded into stolen vehicles and transported across Europe for dissemination. Even with the checkerboard status of marijuana's legality across the EU, the Messi of Hashish operation is still quite profitable, and he's managed to avoid capture for years. According to European law enforcement, Membri uses an extensive network of family members and personal contacts who help him avoid drawing the attention of local authorities. In addition to drug charges, Membri's also wanted for possession of a firearm and money laundering, because when it comes to felonies, you gotta catch 'em all. Viviana Andrea Vallejo Gutierrez, also known as I Can Change Your Bro, is wanted for good old human and drug trafficking, along with money laundering. She might seem harmless, but in truth, she ran a brutal prostitution ring, promising Colombian women passage to Spain for 1,500 euros, a total steal, except the women would then have to pay her back by working as prostitutes at apartments run by her as underground brothels. Gutierrez would move her victims with the aid of an accomplice in Colombia, who would put the girls up in a hotel and give them airline tickets along with false documentation. Once in Spain, though, the women were made into sex slaves and worked under strict rules. They could not refuse a client and had to be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The women only received a single free hour per day to run personal errands, but had to rush back to the apartment if a client contacted them during that time. Gutierrez would personally hold on to all the money earned, doubling the fee that the girls must pay her back from 1,500 to 3,000 euros. Authorities believe Gutierrez is still in Spain, and she is recognizable by her 2 terrible tattoos, one of a half-eaten apple on the left side of her chest, and the other 3 words written across her chest. Who said criminals weren't classy? But next up is a criminal whose crime shook all of Europe. It was the deadliest attack in decades. Here's what happened. On the night of December 19th, a stolen truck plowed through a Christmas market in Berlin, killing 11 and injuring another 56. The incident would be the deadliest terror attack in Germany since the Oktoberfest attack in Munich in 1980, where 13 were killed and 211 injured. The truck would be abandoned a short distance from the scene of the attack, and the perpetrator fled the scene. Inside the truck was the body of Lukas Urban, the original truck driver. He was found dead from several knife wounds along with a single gunshot to the head. Police named Anis Amri as the chief suspect in the attack. Born in Tataouine, Tunisia, Amri entered Germany through Italy in 2015 and had contacts with a well-known ISIL recruiter inside of Germany. A public manhunt was called, along with a reward of 100,000 euros, with police warning that Amri was to be considered armed and extremely dangerous. Amri originally fled from Tunisia after stealing a truck in a bid to avoid prison. He arrived in Italy aboard a refugee raft, lying about his age to pretend he was a minor. At a temporary migrants reception center, Amri took part in a violent riot which led to the center being set on fire and several people being injured. This earned him a 4-year stay in Italian jail. He was released in 2015, though Tunisian authorities refused to accept his repatriation. At this point, Amri made his way to Germany, already labeled a terrorism risk by the Italian government after he threatened to decapitate a Christian cellmate while in prison there. While in prison, he was also reported as being very aggressive and violent. After the attack, Amri was able to travel freely across Europe thanks to borderless travel policies complicating police efforts to track him. Moving from Berlin to Chambéry, France, he boarded a train headed for Turin, Italy. Later, Amri would be stopped by 2 police officers at 3 a.m. outside the city of Milan. Here, the story has a happy ending as Amri would pull a gun on the officers and shoot one in the shoulder, but not before the other officer shot and killed Amri in return. As he lay in a pool of his own blood like a punk, he whispered, "Police bastards," before shutting up forever. His family back in Tunisia would promptly disown Amri, with his own mother cursing his name. We've seen some terrifying criminals the law hasn't been able to catch. But what if we told you one of the most wanted men in the world isn't hiding at all? He's right in front of us, protected by powerful allies. Paul Franklin Watson, seen here, is an environmentalist, conservationist, and founder of the controversial Sea Shepherd Conservation Society, which focuses on anti-poaching and marine conservation activism. A citizen of both the United States and Canada, he has been accused of eco-terrorism by Greenpeace and the government of Japan. Watson had originally been a board member of Greenpeace until he argued for more direct action, Captain Planet style. This violated Greenpeace's nonviolence principle, however, and he was ousted from the board in 1977. That year, he formed the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society, focusing his efforts on whale and seal conservation efforts. An obvious target for Watson's more proactive hands-on approach to conservationism was the Japanese whaling fleet. Despite the world moving on from whaling about a century ago, Japan continues to wage a never-ending war against both whales and dolphins for reasons not truly understood by anyone. Maybe they're just huge Herman Melville fans. Over the years, Watson's Sea Shepherd Society has continued to harass the Japanese whaling fleet, along with poachers and illegal fishing fleets taking advantage of poorly regulated sea spaces. Watson's aquatic annoyance would lead to an Interpol red notice being issued at the request of Japan and Costa Rica. Costa Rica would eventually drop its red notice on Watson, but Japan still holds a grudge. Despite this, the United States allowed Watson to enter the U.S. through customs unharassed in 2014. Since then, Watson has made his home in both the U.S. and France, both of which have refused to extradite him or his Sea Shepherd crew. Watson, meanwhile, would leave Sea Shepherd in 2022 to form a new foundation under his own name, after allegations that Sea Shepherd had been infiltrated and control taken away from him. But the United States isn't the only country protecting someone on the Interpol Most Wanted list. In fact, this next fugitive isn't just being hidden by a country, they're the leader of one. In 2023, the International Court of Criminal Justice would issue an arrest warrant for Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin for crimes against humanity, war crimes, and genocide. Putin, whose middle name is Vladimirovich, translates to "I set out to weaken NATO and accidentally made it stronger," and is accused of running a campaign of war crimes during both the occupation of Crimea in 2014 and the ongoing Russian-Ukrainian war. Putin would be very confused by this indictment, as war crimes and genocide is literally the way Russia fights wars because its military is clown shoes, but also because he already did all this 4 times, once in Syria, once in Georgia, and twice in Chechnya. Per the ICC, hundreds of Ukrainian children have been taken out of Ukraine by Russian forces and forced into Russian orphanages and adoption programs. This is a violation of the Geneva Convention and an attempt at erasing the Ukrainian identity. Putin and the Russian military was also found guilty of purposefully targeting civilians, such as the time the Russian Air Force bombed a theater with a massive sign written on it in Russian saying "Children." Naturally, rather than deter Russian pilots, the sign was just an invitation. But evidence of orders to open civilian evacuation corridors during the early days of the fighting only to immediately shell them once civilians were making use of them helped cement the charges of war crimes. So too did clear evidence of Russia's attempt to freeze Ukrainians during the winter by targeting the nation's electric grid, or to force Ukrainians into a surrender by perpetrating a campaign of terror with daily attacks against civilian targets well behind the front lines. Technically, Interpol is not involved in the arrest of Vladimir Putin, But nonetheless, international signatories to the International Criminal Court are bound by law to arrest Putin if he enters their territory, and many have pledged to do just that. Putin has protested the ICC's ruling and promised to defy it by daring nations to arrest him. Despite this, Putin, seen here indicating the size of his missiles, has tread very carefully and limited his international visits since the announcement of his arrest warrant. Still hungry for more true crime content? Check out our most wanted criminals that terrify even the FBI, or click this video instead.